video on the elevated kitchen, and while this fire gets going, I'm going to kind of explain it, and then I'll walk around and show how it was actually built. You need to make sure this fire stays going, so if I have to stop talking and move the fire around, that's what I'll have to do. But I want to do this video about this particular fire setup, I guess you could say. A couple weeks ago, probably like 3, maybe almost 4 weeks ago, but it's been really dry here, and it's not really been safe to do fires. So over this weekend we had a lot of rain, non-stop rain for like the past 3 days. So it's definitely got wet enough to do fires, and so I want to do, as I mentioned in the intro, this is the elevated kitchen by Morris Kohansky. And it's a little hard to see right now because this particular angle, that this is actually up off the ground, probably about 3 or 4 feet. Trying to move some of this wood over to where the actual fire is, but anyways, this is actually elevated about 3 or 4 feet up off the ground. So so it is elevated. So I am going to go over, before I go over the construction of this, I'm going to go over some of the advantages of an elevated kitchen, or why you'd even want to make an elevated kitchen in the first place. Like, what's the point of it? And the reasons why you'd probably want to make one, it's definitely more of a permanent shelter kind of thing, or if you're going to be setting up in a permanent place, you're not really going to be moving around, this would be a really great option. And what makes it such a nice place is it's essentially kind of like a multi-tool of fire lays, I guess you could call this, or a fire set. Essentially, it has a lot of functions just in the construction, and you guys can kind of see one of them here. Sorry, it's not in focus, but there's 2 workbenches. There's one on that side and there's one on this side. They both need to be cleaned up and made a little bit more like a work surface, but essentially they allow you to either just work on projects being close to a warm fire, and that's really nice in the winter, or they allow you to prep food and fillet meat right next to your fire, so you can put it right into the fire, you can put it right into your stew, whatever you're using the meat for. It allows you to prep meats, vegetables, anything right here, once again right next to the fire. So those are some of the advantages of playing work. With the ground, you're constantly losing thermal energy to the ground. And with this, while there is some dirt in here, and I'll get to that in the construction part of this video, primarily you just have to heat up that little bit of ground, and that's it. There's really no other thing that you have to heat up other than maybe like food or whatever you're going to heat up. So you get to keep a lot of thermal energy, and it makes it a more efficient burning fire, and you get more of the heat energy. So that is a nice thing about it. Well, if you build it to how the picture in Bushcraft, because that's where you'll find this, is the book Bushcraft. If you build it to the picture, there is also a pot hanger set up, and I have that set up here. It's not terribly thick or robust, as you can see, but then again, if you really think about what you're going to be using it for, primarily hanging pots full of water or maybe clothes to dry it out, you don't really need something super thick or super robust. So now on to the construction of how it's built. I think I explained all the pros to it. It really is nice. I would highly recommend it. Like I said, if you're going to be doing a long-term shelter setup, if you aren't really going to be moving from place to place, this is definitely something that I'd recommend. Main construction, you need, forget what all you need. I'm trying to remember. These are 6-inch rounds. They are pretty big. This was definitely a 2-man job hauling in these pieces of wood, because they are 6-inch to 7-inch rounds. But essentially you build them just like you'd build kind of like a cabin, where you notch out. Hopefully you can kind of see these notches, but it sits in this notch, and you can kind of see it there. These don't have to be super precise. Once again, the nice thing is you aren't necessarily building a cabin, you're just building it like how you'd notch a cabin. So this doesn't have to be super clean, super close. You actually kind of want them to not be super deep notches, just so that you can get the maximum height out of this. Because ultimately you'd want to be able to stand up and tend to the fire, and that's what you can do, at least in my setup here. But that's what at least Morris Kohansky was going for. I'm not using this side of the fireplace. This is where I'll show you how you do this. And this one needs probably a little bit more dirt in it. Definitely in this area, there's still a little bit of the sapling showing. But generally, what you do, the fire pit, what you do is you set up all these saplings in this area, which is in between, or it should be on your last log that is going this way, the one that you put the workbenches on. You'll set your saplings, and these guys, but you'll need anywhere from 6 to 10 saplings, and you'll put those in between, you'll thread them in between this log and the far log on that side, and with those pretty close together, you can kind of see how tight packed they have to be. They can have a little bit of gap, but preferably you don't want any gap. And then you just want to put dirt or any solid kind of, this is more of like a clay-ish kind of dirt. It's not fully dirt. So this stuff compacts really well in clay. It's pretty heat resistant, but if you don't have this, you can kind of put a gravelish mixture, just kind of trying to find something that will sit up on all these saplings and will hold a fire nicely. Then lastly is the pot hanger, and of course that's just 2 forked pieces of wood, and then with one kind of stout-ish piece of wood in between. And that's pretty much it. There's not too much to this build. It's a rather simplistic build, and as far as the things that you need, they're easily obtainable. But what does make it hard is getting these big pieces of wood. These big pieces of wood, they have to be 4-foot and 6-foot sections. The 6-foot are these long runners like this one here. These are the 6-foot pieces, and then the 4-foot pieces run this way. These ones here, and so it does take some work getting these 6-inch rounds, and the 6-foot 6 inches are quite heavy. I wasn't able to do it alone. I had to have my friend help me carry them because they each weighed like 50 to 70 pounds. And that was because there was sap still in them. They'd be considerably lighter, and you could probably actually do it by yourself if they didn't have sap in them. But these ones, being that they had sap in them, were really extraordinarily heavy. Anyways, guys, that's the build. There's not, like I said, there's not too many pieces to it, but it's really nice. I would highly recommend it if you're considering a nice fire set that has a lot of capability to it, and like I said, almost like a multi-tool where there's lots and lots of functions, and you get a lot of functionality out of this build. So anyways, guys, I'm out.